hopefully I'll get into Formula 1. I've got Ron Dennis's phone number. I can find him in 9 years and I'll get to find him. And he might give me a free drive in the van.
9 years on and Ron Dennis has got his number. It's P1. Lewis Hamilton, the boy racer from Stevenage, takes pole position for the Canadian Grand Prix. And for his McLaren teammate, the double world champion Fernando Alonso, there's no team orders, no team tactics. He's second among equals. Hamilton on pole.
I knew it was a really good lap, and so I came across the line, I crossed my fingers, and I was just saying, please, 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 let it be this time. And I just went extremely slow, and it went all quiet, and I was just waiting for the team to come on the radio and say, you've got it. And I said, please, guys, tell me I've got it. And they came across, said, you're P1, and I was ecstatic, you know. I'm glad I didn't have the radio on, because I was just shouting in my helmet.
He's grown up quickly, hasn't he? Especially in the last 4 months, and it is an astonishing story. 5 races into his Formula 1 career, and he's never been off the podium. A 3rd place and 4 straight seconds, and now Britain's Lewis Hamilton will start this Canadian Grand Prix from his first ever Formula 1 pole position. The next stage, of course, in the great adventure would be race victory, and there's certainly one half of this McLaren garage that's all set to celebrate Grand Prix history here in Montreal.
So our build-up will trace Hamilton's meticulous preparation for just this moment and any other career directions. So far, his exam results have surprised everyone, not least his world champion teammate. And if he makes it look easy, well, it's not. And our new series with Martin Brundle will examine the physical demands of Formula 1. Your best bet is the ITV F1 competition. It'll get you to the British Grand Prix with a chance to meet Lewis Hamilton himself.
So welcome to our live coverage of what promises to be an absolutely momentous Canadian Grand Prix. And no apologies at all if our race build-up is dominated by the name of Lewis Hamilton, because quite simply Formula 1 itself is dominated by the performance of this young British driver. Mark Blundell, especially after what we saw in qualifying yesterday.
It's a fantastic achievement, Steve. Not just in Formula 1, I think a sporting achievement in general. To see a guy come into the sport and do so much, put himself in pole position after 6 Grand Prix, or only 6 Grand Prix even, there's not many people can do that. I've never seen it before in my career, and I've never seen it in the last 20-odd years.
But it's only part of the job done. How tough is it going to be for him to turn that pole position into race victory?
Yeah, he's got the hard part done in qualifying, but, you know, the Grand Prix here especially is a tough one. I think it's a psychology one for him. If he can get past this and win this, I don't know what we're going to expect from Lewis. There's going to be a lot more to come, but yeah, tough. Teammate Alonso, double world champion, current world champion, but he's already got the edge on him in qualifying.
Well, it's McLaren 1-2 at the front of the grid, and it's a McLaren 1-2 at the top of the World Drivers' Championship. Alonso and Hamilton level on points, but Alonso judged to be ahead by virtue of his 2 race wins. Felipe Massa within striking distance for Ferrari, but Kimi Räikkönen with ground to make up. And Nick Heidfeld qualified the BMW here ahead of the 2 Ferraris. And James Allen can take us through all the details of yesterday's qualifying.
Well, this was a dramatic qualifying session from start to finish. David Coulthard in trouble early on with his brakes. He wound up 14th. Heikki Kovalainen hit the wall. Amazingly, didn't break the rear suspension. But underperforming once again, Ralf Schumacher in the Toyota. He's 18th. The Ferraris weren't looking too good, and neither were the Hondas. Jenson Button's 15th, and Rubens Barrichello is down in 13th place. McLaren's, though, looking very strong. Lewis Hamilton putting down the early marker with the fastest time in the second part of qualifying. Also looking good, the BMW of Nick Heidfeld. He hoisted it in front of the Ferraris in the pole position shootout. He's 3rd on the grid. Raikkonen's ahead of Massa, but it looks like Ferrari have fueled for a long race run. The pole position then was disputed between Alonso and Hamilton. Alonso struck first with a 1:16.1. Hamilton held his nerve through the final chicane for a 1:15.7. Alonso looked to be on a quicker lap, but he blew the final chicane, handing pole position to Lewis Hamilton and a great chance of his first Formula 1 victory.
Coming into this weekend, people are asking, is this the weekend? Is this going to be your first win? And to be honest, I don't really know. You know, I'm on pole, but anything can happen from there. All I want to do is just do it again, do a good job, but there's no better position to start from.
I think it's always very tough race in terms of mentality and concentration. Very close the walls in all the corners, so you know, I think it's a risky race, and hopefully we can finish without problems.
don't know the fuel load of the others, for the example of the Ferraris, which we did beat today. But usually Q2 is a good indicator. Most people run pretty maximum there, and I was already on the third position there. So I think our car is quite good here.
So is this the date with destiny for Lewis Hamilton? He starts from pole position. Alonso on the front row for the 5th time this season. Through to row 2, Heidfeld outstanding in the BMW, Raikkonen and Ferrari 7/10 behind the pole. Massa and Webber make up row 3. Row 4, Rosberg in the Williams, he's been quick all weekend, and Kubica in the BMW. Fisichella made a couple of mistakes and dropped to 9th. Jarno Trulli was great in the Toyota in 10th. Row 6, Takuma Sato and Tonio Liuzzi. Row 7, Barrichello again out-qualifies Button, David Coulthard is 14th. Button and Speed make up row 8. Row 9, Anthony Davidson and Ralf Schumacher for the 3rd race in a row, failing to make the cut in first qualifying. Wirtz and Sutil make up row 10. Albers is at the back, and Kovalainen, because of an engine penalty, drops to 22nd place.
And how much, Mark, is it a blow to Fernando Alonso to be beaten to number 1 spot on that grid? Because all the way through his final lap, he was the one who seemed to be heading to pole.
He did look very strong. His first 2 sectors on his qualifying lap would have certainly put him on pole position, but he blew the last sector, the last chicane, last corner of that lap. And Lewis's lap was spectacular. It was precision, it was perfect. But I think it's a big thing for Lewis now to have that advantage over Alonso. 22-year-olds in his 6th Grand Prix, comes along, puts it on pole position. Alonso must be thinking, what else do I need to keep doing here? Because, every time I raise my game, Lewis raises it again.
And we were expecting a stronger challenge from Ferrari. That didn't appear.
Big disappointment. I'm very surprised by that as well, because I felt that the longer wheelbase car would have suited here. Montreal's always been a Ferrari circuit. I think also Massa done a good job in there. More so maybe than Raikkonen. I think he's carrying a bit more fuel, but yeah, a tough one for them.
And what sort of a factor is Nick Heidfeld going to be in the BMW, 3rd on the grid?
He is the fly in the ointment, and definitely is a problem for Ferrari. I don't think so much for McLaren, but BMW are coming on very strongly.
But it's Lewis Hamilton on pole position, and there's a kind of destiny about seeing Lewis on pole. 22 years old, 5 races into his Formula 1 career, but he's been a presence in motorsport for something like 12 years, showing a real single-minded determination as he made his way up through the junior formulas, and he's never been short of admirers.
I mean, it isn't just he's a driver, because he obviously is a good driver, but he's a racer.
Rise to the occasion, look at yourself and say you're strong. No one can stop you.
Hopefully I'll get into Formula 1. I've got Ron Dennis's phone number. I can find him in 9 years, and I'll get to find him. And he might give me a free drive in McLaren.
You have to say that this young fella's got some extraordinary skills and talents.
The greats come in and do the job straight away.
Cannot do what he's doing unless he is completely aggressive, completely arrogant. But the great thing is he can turn that switch off when he gets out of the car.
Every racing driver's ambition is to be a World Formula 1 champion in the future, and so that's basically what's keeping me going.
No, talent is no question. He's God made something special out of him.
He's a ruthless overtaker. He's an aggressive competitor. I mean, it's beyond all expectation.
The behaviour of a car is always determined by the input of the driver, and he's grasped that. He understands exactly what the car's going to do.
Everybody knew that he's going to be strong, but of course with the new driver coming in the Formula 1, he has done very well.
It's no surprise to me, and I think it can only get better.
In Formula 1, if you deserve it, sooner or later you'll get there.
So yeah, you've got to say he's done a very good job.
All I'm really looking forward to is getting in the podium and stuff. I want to get on TV as well.
Well, he's got himself on the box all right, and being comfortable with that side of things, all the media pressures, and Lewis so clearly is, that's a big part of what this is all about.
Oh, very much so, and he's a very polished young man, but that's part of the McLaren grooming, Steve. You know, this guy is probably the best prepared Grand Prix driver we've ever seen. Over several years now, he's been analysed and guided. He's been positioned in the right teams all the way along his career, but every time he's come back with results, and there's a championship on his CV for everything he's ever done. He's got to this position now, and he's on pole. You know, we've only got one more step to go for him.
And the way McLaren have brought him on, is that a kind of template for the way young drivers should be brought through?
Well, I think it's a huge risk in many respects. If you think about it, you know, investing that much resource, time and effort into a young guy, but I'm not sure that all the teams will take the same view. McLaren have always had a long-term objective in everything they do. This has certainly paid off for them.
And you've certainly got to have the raw talent behind the wheel, which is what Lewis Hamilton has got. Let's take a look at his stunning pole position lap of yesterday with Martin Brundle.
The Gilles Villeneuve circuit, Montreal for the Canadian Grand Prix. 4.3 kilometres, 2.7 miles, a series of long, bumpy straights, heavy braking zones and chicanes. Let's take a look at Lewis Hamilton's magnificent pole position. 180 miles an hour down into the heart of turn 1. It's really a deceleration zone for turn 2, and here we are, still downshifting, 40 miles an hour. Now launch out of there, incredible grip and traction. The engine singing its head off up to 140 before braking for turns 3 and 4. This is an important corner. And just up against the wall, he got away with that. 5 is easily full throttle. Right hand side, heavy braking, turn 6. You must collect the curb on the left. It's like a railway line pulling the car round. Now avoid the wall on the exit and you're away. Up to 180 miles an hour. It's narrow, bumpy. Just under the bridge, there's a shadow where we're going to brake hard. The back of the car will be dancing around. He steers it beautifully across those 2 curbs. That was absolutely perfect. We're on our way down to the hairpin, 180 miles an hour, get the car straight, press the brake pedal very hard, 5 times the force of gravity, we're slowing down. He just hooks up with the apex. Now Fernando Alonso is just behind us. He is also on a hot lap. He's 1/10 of a second faster to this point. It's all about the crucial final chicane. 200 miles an hour. We're looking for a braking point 100 metres before the corner on the left-hand side. Now he's going to launch it in. 80 miles an hour. He flies across the curbs, scoops up the rear sliding, just misses the wall, and he's on his way to the line. That was crucial, and it gave him pole position.
Well, we're down here in the paddock, and this is where Lewis Hamilton is at the moment. He's just in his little office in this hut here. 2 weeks after possibly the most disappointing race of his career, when he was prevented from racing Alonso at the front in Monaco. Here it's different. He's free to race and he's free to lead. And he feels much of the criticism in Monaco really missed the point.
Let's not distract ourselves from the fact that we had a 1-2. We're leading the championship at the moment. Both drivers and constructors, we did a fantastic job. But no, coming here, I've got the same car, I've got a great bunch of mechanics, I've got the same opportunity.
As we try so often to show, and no one seems to believe us, we are absolutely even-handed. It's going to be a good race. Hopefully, no silliness.
Ron just wants another McLaren 1-2 and doesn't care what the order is. Even Alonso accepts that if Lewis is leading him on the track, he will obey any order to hold station behind.
It's a team decision what they want from us, and for sure common sense means something, and for sure if in the last 10 or 15 laps we are first and second, I'm second, I will have absolutely no problems to race because I need 8 points for the championship.
F1's previously struggled for popularity in North America. Amazingly, Lewis looks like the man to sell the sport here.
A lot of the sports that haven't really broken through in America but are really popular worldwide, and soccer's been that way too, they've tried to find that one little key, that one entry point. And I think Hamilton's story is a terrific one. I mean, that's stuff that resonates with the Tiger Woods example, and maybe Lewis could be recognized as the same sort of athlete.
Lewis has never had a better chance to win his first Grand Prix. It's an opportunity to erase the memory of Monaco.
Well done, Lewis, on behalf of everyone watching at home through this weekend. How big a moment is this for you?
It's huge. I mean, really, I was saying in the press conference, I'm not one to ever really qualify pole. I did some qualifying poles in Formula 3 or something like that, but I've always been one that's very strong in the race, not in qualifying. And to finally get my first pole position in Formula 1 in only my 6th race, it's just it's incredible. And just the feeling I had when I came across the line and they told me, you've got pole, it was just such a relief for one, but just sheer excitement because, it's the beginning of something quite special, I think.
Absolutely. Well, tell us about the climax of that pole position lap and the final corner coming out of that final shoot. You have to get everything absolutely right, don't you?
The first sector was very good, the second sector was very good, and when you're coming down that back straight into the last corner, doing 210 miles an hour, knowing that you are up, and the key is, I'm coming up to it and I'm thinking, okay, don't ask for any more. You know, you've got 410s, just try to keep it. But it's tough to keep that. But anyway, I went quicker than I've ever been through there. I took a lot of curb. I nearly hit the wall on the exit. But it was just unreal. I was coming out the corner and I was telling them, come on, please, please. And it's just such an amazing feeling when you know you've put absolutely every sector together. You've not made one mistake, and you've pulled it off.
So what actually officially, from your point of view, is the racing relationship between you and Fernando within the team?
We both want to win. Simple as that. But we respect each other. We don't want to make any silly moves, although I hope he doesn't. I will be planning to stay first. But racing with your teammate is never a nice feeling, because obviously you want to beat your teammate, but to be racing with them into the first corner is not really the best feeling, because you don't want to make silly mistakes, and it could easily take both of us out by either him making a mistake or me making a mistake. And it's not a big problem if it's someone like Felipe with the Ferraris, because you want to beat them more than anything, so you won't, you'll do whatever it takes. But here you just got to be quite cautious at the first corner, so it is tricky going into the first corner, but I think we're both sensible enough to make sure we come out of it okay.
We're not going to tempt fate, but it's your best chance yet, isn't it?
It is absolutely, and it's great to know I've got the opportunity. It's a real great feeling, and if I come second, still it's great points for the team, or even third. It's great points for the team and great points for my championship campaign.
And it is amazing to reflect that Lewis Hamilton has performed so well on a circuit that he's only seen for the very first time this week, a circuit of high-speed straights and those demanding chicanes, the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, the toughest venue of the season so far for brakes. And brake wear and brake management is the subject this week for Mark Blundell and Question Mark.
With speeds up to 200 miles an hour and heavy braking up to 5 times the force of gravity, there's little wonder the car's stopping ability is a major concern in Canada. This week's question comes from Jamie Bevis in Liverpool, and he asks, what extra measures do the teams take to make sure the brakes last a duration for the Canadian Grand Prix? Well, I've got Sam Michael here, F1 Technical Director of the Williams team, to answer this one.
Well, the main thing that we do at Montreal, because it's the hardest track on brakes out of the whole circuit, the first thing we do is we go to very hard compound disc and pad materials, which are buried inside the barrel here. We grow the brake duct out here, so we get more air into the disc. Normally this surface runs along there. For Montreal, we grow it out there. We have our caliper cooling there as well, so that's enlarged. We can feed more air across here and around there to the caliper. But the disc itself runs at peaks of up to 1,000 degrees during braking. If you start running over 600 continuously, you'll start getting very high wear rates. And at Montreal, that can be a killer, so that's what we look out for.
Brake wear isn't the only issue the teams have to deal with here. We're down in the back of the Spiker garage. Nothing unusual there, you might think. But when we go out to the back here, things look a bit different. This is one of the flyway races, so the teams don't have the big transporters that they're used to at the European events. Everything has to get put in boxes and shipped out here. They have these big track shacks. They're specially designed to go in a cargo hold. This one on the right's got bits for the car, bits for the gearbox and the hydraulic system on the left. These go to all of the flyway races, places like Bahrain and Shanghai. But there's a big difference between those races and this one's here in Montreal, and that's the space. This garage complex is about the third of the size of the garages in Shanghai, and it's just not equipped to the standards that the teams have all come to expect, and that does cause the team a few problems. Andy Stevenson, you're the team manager here at Spiker. What kind of issues do you have with a lack of space?
Well, as you've already seen here, things are very tight for us, and it doesn't matter where we are in the world, we've still got the same job to do. We still bring the same amount of equipment, which is about 30 tons of it. And we still bring the same amount of personnel, which is about 75 guys. So when we're in garages like this, it is almost impossible for us to achieve our job.
It's not that you've just been spoilt by the new circuits?
The new circuits are fantastic, but this is probably the most difficult place we come in the world. Even some of the older venues still do a very good job for us.
Thanks, Andy.
Yes, and the pit lane and the garages are pretty tight here in Montreal, but they've been cleared of most of the VIP visitors that we've had in the last half hour. You can sense the tension starting to rise now.
You can sense some tension, and very much so outside the McLaren garage here, Steve, because I think there's a lot of anticipation of what the result's going to be today. Either way, I think they're going to win this Grand Prix. It's just who is going to be the driver who does it.
Well, in a few minutes' time, we'll see the cars leaving the pit lane and heading out onto the grid, where no doubt some of the drivers and the personalities that surround them will be ambushed by Martin Brundle. But Martin has also been putting together further features in his already award-winning series of Formula One Insights. And here's the first contribution of this season in a series which looks at styles, techniques, and in particular the demands of Formula One.
When I was in a Grand Prix car at Silverstone earlier this year, it reminded me yet again just how incredibly physical they are to drive. From the onboard cameras, it looks like the drivers are just easily turning the wheel and cruising along, although we know that they're super fit. In commentary, I've struggled to express to you just how difficult this motor racing lark is. Well, today, using a number of experiments, I'm going to show you the challenges they face. Formula One drivers often have access to 2 physical trainers to help them work out when they're at tests, races and at home. The teams will also have physiotherapists on hand. Today's Formula One drivers are super fit athletes. Now at 47, I'm not as fit as I used to be when I was racing, but I'm not in bad nick, so let's find out what my baseline is. This is a standard gym workout in normal kit. My resting pulse is 58, and with a solid effort, it will go to 150. Easy enough. Constantly driving with a high heart rate, it's no surprise at all that a driver's cardiovascular system is impressively developed. In a very cramped environment, their heart and lungs must pump blood and absorb oxygen in copious amounts. Breathing is surprisingly difficult in the aerodynamic void of the cockpit, especially as they must also wear a balaclava and crash helmet. Movement of the lungs and diaphragm is heavily restricted by the seat and seat belts. Right now, though, my body can breathe quite easily. Here, I'm working my cardiovascular system with my legs on the bike. The drivers, though, have developed specific exercises to build essential strength in their upper bodies where it's most needed. A simple workout like this, though, is not at all representative of the real challenge. So that's a good little workout, but I'm enjoying air conditioning and normal gym kit. That's not the environment a Formula One driver works in. He just sits in a heat source and he's completely clothed. Let's see how that feels. 4 layers of fireproof clothing, along with gloves, boots and helmet, are great for keeping the flames out, but also keep the heat in. My pulse goes immediately to 192, and breathing is becoming very hard. The gym is now up to 50 degrees centigrade, just like the cockpit of a Formula One car. My skin rises to 36 degrees, and I'm sweating profusely. This is seriously hard work. A cruel irony is that the muscles working hardest in this cramped environment are pinned down by full harness seatbelts which are so tight they hurt. The hand's neck protector is invaluable in a crash but adds to the muscular challenges. Dial in some stress and you have a heart-bursting combination. Okay, that was much harder. There's no way I could do that for 2 hours without being fitter and without the benefit of competition and adrenaline. But there's another, more mysterious and invisible force they have to cope with. This amazing piece of equipment is called a centrifuge. It's based at Kinetic near Farnborough. They're going to apply G-force to my body so that I can explain to you just what it feels like. Let me tell you what G-force is in real terms. Imagine you're driving really quickly through a roundabout and Grandma sitting in the back slides from side to side across the car. She's not going to be impressed, but it's G-force that's doing that. But a Formula One car can achieve 5G when cornering and braking. That's 5 times the force of gravity. Let's see what that feels like. This centrifuge is going to apply force to my body as if I was accelerating. That's 2G in a Formula 1 car. But of course the drivers have to suffer lateral G2 through the corners and heavy braking G up to 5. And when you get to that kind of level, trying to push my arms away is a really special effort. If I move my head side to side, it's an amazing amount of energy. I'm struggling to speak now. G-force soaks up your power and your energy, affects your ability to breathe, and may even affect your vision too. It's no wonder the drivers have to be so tightly fitted in the cars so they don't move around. The cars are tailored to them like a Savile Row suit. And they've got to drive the car, communicate with the pits, race with other cars too, all with these kind of forces going on inside the cockpit. Absolutely amazing. G-force physically hurts, and to experience a pure 5G without having to think about all of the other things going on around you on track is an amazing amount of energy. Now we understand more about the physical challenges the drivers face every corner of every lap. For our next feature, I'm going to drive the Williams Toyota at Silverstone to see how all of this relates behind the wheel and on the track.
Well, it used to be Mark Blundell that set the physical standard in this sport, but now it's very much Lewis Hamilton, who arrived in the garage behind us a short time ago and very deliberately shook hands with all his crew, and it's a very bonded unit, this, isn't it?
It is indeed, Steve, and I think that's something that Lewis works on. He makes sure that everybody around him he uses actually to get a positive from, and all of his team here are supporting him. He's going to go out there and give him what he thinks is the best thing for him, and that's a win.
Possibly the experience of Monaco brought this crew together even more. Let's go down the pit lane where I think Louise Goodman has got Niki Lauda.
Well, Niki, Kimi Raikkonen seems to think that Ferrari are going to be much more on the pace of McLaren in the race. What's your view?
They won't be, because I think the McLaren will go their own pace today. The race will be between Alonso and Hamilton. Let's wait and see if the little one can beat the big one. But the Ferraris, I think, today will not be quick enough.
Are you surprised that there is such a gap between them and the McLarens?
I'm not surprised, because I think McLaren did the right step forward. I don't think Ferrari is bad. I just think that McLaren just improved their car so much that after Monte Carlo and here they are much quicker, because they're 6/10 quicker in practice.
And of those two McLaren drivers, who's your money on for the win?
It's very difficult today, because Lewis certainly did a good job in practice. So far he did no mistakes, but as you know, he's young and no experience, so we all expect mistakes, but they're not coming. So the question will be today for me very simple. If he's in the lead and Alonso can follow him all the way, I think Alonso can do 2 or 3 laps longer. This would be my guess, even I'm not Ron Dennis. And if he pulls enough speed out of the 2 laps, then he will win. If he does not, then Hamilton might win.
Thanks, Niki.
And here in the garage, the clock is ticking for Lewis Hamilton. He's in the car. This is an important moment for him, where he gets to sort of shut himself away from all the pressures that have been around during the course of the morning.
Very much so. Now he has his helmet on. He's inside that car there. And at the end of the day, I think, he's run through this situation all the time. He knows what he's going to do when he comes off the grid, and he's run through what this race is going to hold for him. He's very calm and collected.
And what he'll do on the grid, quite probably, is keep himself to himself.
Yeah, he will keep himself to himself. I'm sure everybody wants to get a piece of Lewis at the moment, but what I mean by that is he's very much going to understand what his thoughts are in terms of leaving that grid on pole position and how he's going to run his race, Steve. He's worked it out several times.
What are the kind of checks that the crew are running through, and the particular concerns that they might have at this stage?
The biggest concern is getting into turn 1, and that's going to be the area of concern for Alonso and Lewis Hamilton with the McLaren cars. But, they would have worked it out. They've strategized. They've got everything in place. I don't think there's any problem.
Looking at them working there, there's a lot of sticky tape involved in Formula 1, isn't there?
Yeah, they're just putting on the last little bits of tape just to shut off all the small gaps, just so there's no air what gets underneath any of the bodywork. Lewis is prepared there with all the visor strips on in case of any debris that gets onto his visor. And the last part there, just putting the gloves on. It seems a simple process, but it's very much a routine for a driver to feel 100% confident in how they get settled into the cockpit of a race car.
Well, Fernando Alonso, as you would have gathered, has left the garage alongside, and most of the grid will have formed by the time Lewis Hamilton goes out. What will that moment be like as he weaves his way through the grid and onto pole position?
Well, I think he's been waiting for this situation and waiting for this position to happen for many, many years, but there's an immense amount of pressure on his shoulders now, Steve. Something that he hasn't actually felt before. Yes, he's been on pole position in karting, yes, Formula Renault, GP2, but not an F1 race.
And you've got no doubt in your mind that he's got the mental strength for what lies ahead.
He's one of the most physically and mentally strong guys we see in the pit lane, and I don't think there's going to be any areas of concern for this young man at all.
So Lewis Hamilton heads out onto the grid to take his first ever Formula One pole position. It's a whole new experience for Lewis Hamilton. He probably won't be talking to Martin Brundle out there, but other drivers certainly will, and will be out on that Canadian Grand Prix grid in just a few minutes' time. Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal, named after one of the most distinctively unique talents the sport has seen in the last 30 years. And today the Canadian Grand Prix grid in Montreal is welcoming the arrival of another, Lewis Hamilton, making his way onto pole position ahead of this Canadian Grand Prix. Thoughts at this point, Mark Blundell?
I think for Lewis, obviously his focus is going to be getting off the line there, but one of the other impressions for me of this qualifying and coming up to this race now is Nick Heifeld. I think he's done a tremendous job in a BMW, and I think they're going to be definitely somebody who are going to try to get on the podium and take some points away from the Ferraris and try and make some inroads into the McLaren situation. But it's definitely something which is going to bug Ferrari. I'm slightly concerned about their pace, and I'm still concerned about they haven't even got enough fuel on to be competitive for the longer runs.
What a huge race this is for Kimi Raikkonen, who's in danger of losing touch with the pace of the World Championship battle.
He definitely is. The guys in McLaren are pulling away, and Kimi Raikkonen, was the #1 contender in many respects for the World Championship title this year, and it is dropping away. He's made a couple of errors. It's not the Raikkonen that we felt was going to be the package with Ferrari and producing results, so there's a lot of pressure on his shoulders.
Fernando Alonso, who won this race last year, of course, in a Renault from pole position, now taken his place on the front row alongside Lewis Hamilton. Is there any kind of advantage? Obviously, pole is an advantage, but is there an advantage to either side of the grid that you might be starting?
I mean, it's always best to start on the cleaner side of the grid there, and, there would be an advantage to a bit more rubber gone down. But I think for Alonso, there's this little psychology part that if Lewis wins this, that's going to give him a little bit more confidence again, and how much confidence he's got already is beyond belief. But it's going to be a big thing for Alonso if he comes second today.
And the new experience for Lewis Hamilton, parking that McLaren on pole position. Interesting to hear from Lewis during the course of the interview that we did yesterday, how little experience he's got of starting from pole position. He was a notoriously bad qualifier by the standards that you might expect. And certainly in Formula One, it's a new experience, but it's not something that his career has produced down the recent years in any case.
Well, he's been very honest about that, and to be fair to him, he has had pole position in his career, but they haven't been as plentiful as what you would imagine when you look at his actual results and his CV. But again, his asset is that he is a racer, and come Sunday afternoon, that's really where he comes at his best.
Heikki Kovalainen is another of the young drivers who have entered Formula One this season via the route of GP2, but he's way at the other end of the grid after all kinds of problems in qualifying yesterday, compounded by an earlier engine penalty as well. But it's Kimi Raikkonen for Ferrari, who has out-qualified his teammate Felipe Massa, but he typifies and will try and embody the Ferrari challenge today, which was so disappointing in Monaco. Well, we're back-to-back North American races with Indianapolis next week, and then it's France and Silverstone back-to-back in this crucial stretch of the season. And you can get to the British Grand Prix in some style in our ITV F1 competition. The result of the previous competition first of all, and for correctly identifying Jenson Button as the driver who got his first F1 win at Hungary last year. Peter Haynes is off on a VIP trip for two to the British Grand Prix, and you could be joining him in this week's competition.
We're offering you a very special prize, a VIP trip for two to the Santander British Grand Prix on the 8th of July, where you'll meet F1 sensation Lewis Hamilton. You'll be given a pair of VIP McLaren Paddock Club tickets for both qualifying and the race, where you can enjoy a gourmet lunch and unlimited champagne. There's a pit lane walkabout, and you get to meet the team and enjoy the best view of the circuit. Transportation's included, and you'll stay overnight in a 5-star hotel. Not only that, but you'll also get to meet Britain's #1 driver, Lewis Hamilton, at an exclusive Abbey reception event. To be in with a chance of winning this great prize courtesy of Santander and Abbey, just answer this simple question. Silverstone is in which county? A. Northamptonshire, B. Warwickshire, C. Dorset. The number to call is 0901 293 2020, or you can text F1 plus A, B or C to 63337. Calls cost £1 per entry from a BT landline. Calls from other networks and mobiles may be higher. Text will cost £1 plus the standard network rate. Lines close on Thursday the 14th of June and entrance must be 18 or over. Good luck.
And the ITV F1 website is also the place, not only for the competition, but for all the stats and news and features and background on the sport of Formula One. An essential background coming up now ahead of this Canadian Grand Prix as we go down onto the grid to join Martin Brundle.
Welcome to the grid. It's hot. Fantastic crowd, fully expectant of a challenging afternoon of motorsport. It's a short run down to the first corner for the two front row sitters. Of course, Lewis Hamilton a fraction ahead of Fernando Alonso. There is the view. It's curved even all the way down to that braking zone. We've got to assume that the computers on those two McLarens will get the cars almost in formation down there, so Lewis should have the advantage. What they've got to be careful of, and we'll have a look in a minute, is Nick Heidfeld in third place. We think he's lighter on fuel. He may well elect to put the softer tyres on, which we think will be no good over a longer run. He'll do the shorter run with those, and he might just be a nuisance to them on the first lap, more so Alonso than Lewis, I would imagine. Lewis on the grippy side of the track, the racing side of the track, and I just see if we can get hold of Anthony, his dad. And you know, I don't want to bother Lewis too much, because I'm sure the first time we talk to him, he's going to have a dreadful day. He's had a third place, followed by 4 second places in his first 5 races. Anthony, tell us what's going on. How's Lewis? What's he said to you today?
He's not said much at all, actually. He's just been smiling all day, smiling all night, and hoping that he gets a good start off the grid today.
Now, does he watch the previous races closely? Has he analysed them?
Yeah, I mean, he's done his homework, obviously, and I think what he's going to try and do today is just keep his fingers crossed, try and get a clean start, and if he can get in and out of the first corner, hopefully it'll be his day.
Now, I think a lot of drivers are going to go off today because we saw the track breaking up last year. You got a lot of marbles on the outside. It's a bumpy place, treacherous racetrack. How confident are you that he's absolutely ready to go and be the man to stay in front?
Well, to be honest, I think, like with everything Lewis does, as long as he has a good day, if we win the race, that's a bonus, but as long as we get some points, bring the car home, and that's what he's going to be looking to do. He's not going to push or do anything silly. We just want to bring the car home and get the points today.
But you looked absolutely destroyed when he didn't win Monaco, so you're playing this game, but I'm sure at the end of the day, you think he's ready to win it.
I was destroyed we didn't win Monaco because I like to win. But, it's all a learning curve, the whole thing.
All right, we'll have a great day and wish him good luck for us. Cheers. Right, let's wander over and see if we can find the fellow front row sitter, Fernando Alonso. I've missed him. He's gone off to the toilet, unfortunately. Let's go and find, here's the real boss of McLaren, Mrs. Lisa Dennis. Lisa and Cathy Auger, come on girls, you've got the inside line at McLaren. Which one of the McLaren drivers is going to win this afternoon?
One or the other, we hope.
Yeah, well, what's going on? What's the strategy? What's the, and I don't mean in terms of laps and all that sort of thing, but you must be super confident, yeah?
I think it looks good. We're in the right place on the grid. We've got the Ferraris behind us, that's what we want. So, yeah, and may the best man win.
All right, good luck. Love to see you. Right, let's see if we can find Nick Heidfeld in third place. Just a tremendous job he did here. Let's see if we can find him under the umbrella. Nick, can we have a quick word? ITV, top man. Excuse me, mate, I'm going to have to stand in front of your camera. Yeah, you found a nice, cool place down here, and great job in qualifying.
Yeah, qualifying was quite exciting actually for us, mainly because yesterday morning I didn't get any running into it.
Now in Monaco you started with the softer tyres and you did a lot of damage to other people by passing them in the early part of the race. Might you do that again today?
You will see. I mean, we tried to learn obviously from our last races. We also did that in Melbourne. I was on P3 there. As usual, there are some positives and some negatives. With the soft tyres, you have a better start. If you're on a low fuel strategy like I was in Melbourne, you do the shorter stint, so it's not that easy.
Now tell us about the track was breaking up in qualifying at the hairpin turn 10. What's it look like at the moment?
Actually, I find it ridiculous because it's not the first time that happens, and they should manage to do it. You know, last year, for example, Jacques went into the wall because of that problem. Yesterday, Fernando lost his pole due to that. They tried to rectify it now, but it's just unacceptable, I find.
So you think it might break up again in the race?
When we went through there on the drivers' parade, I don't know if they put tarmac or if they maybe took something away. I don't know what will happen.
Okay, well, the track's a living thing. Thank you for your time. And let's see if we can find. We haven't spoken to Kimi Räikkönen this year. Right, he's over near this glorious Ferrari. Look at this. This is one of the few opportunities you get to just poke around with Formula One cars and just get really good shots there. They really are fully exposed on the grid. It's a new colour they've painted. It's sort of like a darker metallic red. And Kimi is over there. Let's see if we can. Last time I spoke to him was Brazil last year, where he did give me a one-word answer, but it wasn't the word we were necessarily looking for. No. Okay, you want me to go around the back? That's fair enough. Quick word, Kimi. Quick word for ITV. Just one word. Okay. No, that is the word, isn't it? And as another man I want to see, which is Martin Whitmarsh. You're not the man I was heading to see, but we want to know what's going to happen with your two McLarens. You've obviously had to referee them in Monaco quite heavily. Are you expecting to do the same today?
No, we're hoping to have a 1-2. We don't care who's first, we don't care who's second. So I know there's, contrary to people's belief, I think we want to win the race here, and we'll do what we think is right during the race. I think we've got two sensible drivers. They're pretty on the case. They both want to win. It's a pretty good problem to have, really.
Okay, good stuff. Now, I understand Lewis didn't follow team radio instruction in Monaco. He chose not to hear them. Is that true?
I think Lewis drove a great race, and I'm sure he will here today.
That's a yes then. Thank you. Right, we've just got... let me see if I can find Mark Webber, because I think he did a sterling job in qualifying. It's nice that we're finding plenty of drivers. Mark Webber is not there. He's sixth on the grid for Red Bull. And one key challenge today is going to be the brakes. They're going to have to... The last 10 laps of the race, they have to watch out for the brakes on this circuit. Back to you, Steve.
Thanks, Martin. That's the grid walk for the day and the Kimi Räikkönen interview for the season. At the back end of the grid, problems for Christian Albers in the Spiker. Gearbox problems, we understand. Those two Spikers, Albers and Adrian Sutil, sharing the back row of the grid. Teammates on the back row, but what about the teammates on the front row? And we heard Lewis a little earlier talking about the thought from him was that ideally he wouldn't want to be racing his own teammate off the front row. What kind of problems, what sort of limitations does that impose for a driver?
Well, you've always got that area of concern when you go into the first corner that one of you makes a mistake, or the guy next to you actually comes in a bit hot and runs up alongside you. We've seen time and time again here a few incidents occur, and it is a short run, as Martin said, in the grid walk into turn one. But Lewis will be focused on his start, getting into turn one. Yes, he's got to consider his teammate, but in the heat of the moment, that split-second decision, Steve, when you do this kind of thing, you've really got to think about number one, and that's you.
This is a circuit you just can't relax on. Why is it that we've seen so many drivers going off here over the last couple of days?
Well, it's just a very tricky circuit. Running into turn one is the first issue you have to contend with, and that problem arises very often. You would see people hit the concrete wall very often after having a couple of contretemps. But the circuit is difficult because it's so bumpy, hard winters, the surface breaks up, and in many ways, Steve, it changes lap after lap after lap. It's not a circuit what's used on a regular basis, and the only time it really gets any heavy use is a Grand Prix.
We talk a lot about Lewis Hamilton. We talk less these days, sadly, about Jenson Button and Honda. He's back in 15th place, row 8 of the grid, and he's with Louise, I think.
Yeah, he was on pole position here a couple of years ago, so he's obviously quick around this track, but doesn't have the car to do that this year, sadly. It's going to be quite a tough day from 15th on the grid, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It always is, especially the start. When you're this far back, it's pretty manic. So yeah, it's going to be an exciting race, and I think this is a tough race reliability-wise for everyone. So there is a possibility, I think I'm quite excited about challenging for a point, which sounds crazy, but it's possible, and I'm looking forward to the race.
It's often a race of attrition. We've actually just seen some footage of you going into the wall a couple of years ago, but that could play into your hands today, couldn't it? A few other guys dropping out.
When you're this far back, yeah, anything plays into your hands, really. So I'm looking forward to it, and I think we can have a good race. You know, I think qualifying was pretty crap. It was pretty disastrous, but today I think we can have a much better day. Today is a better day.
We'll catch you later.
Cheers.
It looks as if Fernando Alonso certainly has his supporters, but talking about Honda, they were targeting this race in many ways after their dreadfully poor start to the season as kind of the relaunch of their fortunes. It doesn't seem that way at the moment.
Yeah, they're still having some problems, but you know, Formula One, you don't fix problems overnight. They're a process of everybody getting together, and several areas which, you know, will be the problems for the car at this moment being put together and made improvements on. I think there'll be more to come from this team when they get back to Europe, and you know, definitely Jenson Button, as you said there, he's now motivating himself to collect a point, let alone looking for a Grand Prix win, which he achieved last year. But it's a difficult period for the team.
And there's Fernando Alonso, and it was surprising to hear him almost concede to Ted Kravitz in his interview that maybe he'll be backing off in the latter stages of the race if he's in a kind of Monaco situation.
Well, I think there might be an element of them setting themselves up for, you know, not having that Monaco issue again, and maybe they've had a couple of chats about what they do say and what they don't say.
Huge Ferrari presence here, and well, they've got a bit to cheer on with Kimi Räikkönen, 4th place on the grid. And it's the sort of launch of Formula One in North America, and Lewis Hamilton is particularly important in that respect. But there's always enthusiasm around Montreal for the Canadian Grand Prix.
Yeah, there is huge enthusiasm. It's a great Grand Prix, and there's a lot of educated fans out there. It's a good one.
Well, Lewis Hamilton has been equal to every challenge that Formula One has presented him with over his 5 races so far, but this is something extra special. Today, it's the challenge of dominating a race from pole position for the first time in Formula One, and also trying to dominate a highly motivated world champion teammate who'll be right alongside. But he's ready for it, and so are we. Canadian Grand Prix is moments away.